What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Long Box Sessions. I am your host, Alex Dandino.
And I'm Josh Griffey.
As always, catch us on all your socials. You know where we are. Please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts, most importantly, before you go to your Spotify or your iHeartRadio, whatever you choose to listen. Please, for the love of God, go on Apple Podcasts, rate and review our show. It really helps us. It really tells people what's going on in our world. I mean, that's really kind of the long and short of the business, though. Griff, are you surviving week 5? I'm in week 5. I don't know what quarantine week you're in. I'm in week 5.
Yeah. I mean, I've hit that. I don't have the will to be a part of anything anymore, so that's a really fun phase of this. Just kind of hitting that, like, I've had those, like, weird cycles where I had the, couple days where it's like, all right, I'm going to take control of this, and be, like, hyper-productive guy. Okay. And that feels like it's coming to an end where I'm just like, yeah, I don't really care about the laundry. Like, I don't care if I'm being productive. I'm entering the new cycle of may have to risk it and go get more alcohol and see if that does it. Yeah. So yeah, that's fun. It's good stuff. I
mean, yeah, I had a similar situation today where I looked in my drawers and I noticed that I was running, maybe this is TMI, but I was running low on underwear and I'm like, who cares? Like, where am I going?
Who needs underwear? It's one of those societal dead weights that we're just going to drop in the future. Like, we don't need underwear. We don't need all these.
I mean, I'm personally really excited for us to go tunics, like in this new world. It's going to happen.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. I'm a tunic guy. We have had some massively horrible weather, right? So there's some tunic problems with weather, right? I'm going to have to ask my wife how they sustain in wind. But yeah, once we get that, I'll be fine. I'm fine to go tunic. And if someone happens to see the Nuggets once in a while.
I think finding any semblance of normalcy. I was talking to my wife about this. We every day we take a walk because we can still. We have to wear masks and everything, but we take a walk with the kiddo, and we were talking today about like there is just like you have to find like some semblance of normalcy. Mm-hmm. Like we went out and got like we usually do like 2 weeks worth of grocery shopping. So she went and got the groceries. I watched the kiddo, and then I was like, great, we're on our schedule again. Like I can plan dinners and all this other shit, but like. It's not even a schedule thing. It's just finding normal. Like I took a shower today and I'm like, this feels really good. Why don't I do this every day? It's like, you should be doing it every day, you fucking dirty
No, showers are the next thing to go. We're going to go back to once a year upon thy birthday. Like in the olden days. We're wasting the water. No, I don't know. Yeah, I gave my dog a bath today and I was like, he's a dog. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Who knows, man? I'm over it like everyone else. But, we got to do what we got to do.
I want to bring something up real quick that happened to me last week. Shout out to one of our longtime listeners, Jordan Kirchhoff. He's a teacher. He's trying to do this. Basically, his kids are writing historical fiction, like Revolutionary War historical fiction, and he invited me to like help the kids like build their stories and that kind of stuff. And the kids started pitching me last week, and I got to tell you. I have not felt a charge of like creativity and entertainment like that in a very long time. Like even my own stuff, like listening to kids like talk about being excited about writing comics was really like the push I needed to get through the rest of the week last week. So I just want to thank Jordan for that because I really, really needed it. And it was really nice to just hear kids excited about something that wasn't like, oh, thank God I get to go outside. Like it was nice to hear them being excited about anything else.
How old are these kids?
I think it's 5th grade.
Yeah, that's a good age because it's like they're smart enough, but they haven't like had the crushing reality fall upon them yet.
Right.
And so you're exactly. like, that's a good thing, man. I find myself like that too. Like I rewatch movies with my kids, and they really like it. I'm like, oh, I hated this, but I was judging it as like this, critical-eyed, whatever. And you're like, okay. It's good to be around young people that aren't crushed yet.
Yeah, all the students were so optimistic. And like, for my comic book, I want to write about the Boston Tea Party. I'm like, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, what's that Boston Tea Party comic going to be? Like, I was just like so excited to talk to the kids about like their comic books. I'm like, oh my God, the warmth that came over the icicle that is my heart just started melting a little bit. It was very helpful. For sure, man. So thank you, Jordan, for including me in this interesting project you have going with your students. And I applaud you for keeping them engaged like that. That is tough these days from my understanding from other teacher friends I have. Another crazy thing that happened over the weekend is this was the weekend of WonderCon. I had totally
R.I.P.
forgotten, but I looked at my phone. Wait, was it the weekend of WonderCon? Might have been a little earlier, but I looked at my phone and I got an email from them that said WonderCon at home, and literally they basically just digitized the entirety of the thing. Like, some people obviously couldn't attend like Zoom calls and stuff like that, but you could basically do a like Google Hangout or a Zoom call like it was you like you'd be us going to a panel. So you could go in like interviews with artists, watch artists do artwork, and then even a digital artist alley where you literally just scroll through and you can click on someone's store and look through all their art. Like, and I was wondering, I got to be honest, like, we've gone to the cons before, and it is sometimes a trial. I'm not gonna lie. Standing in line, dealing with the sweaties, like, and we're all just sitting there. And I don't pass judgment in that regard, but I kind of do. Like, take a shower at least once. But nevertheless, there's no one like sitting there like hovering over like Tom King, be like, in Mr. Miracle #6, I had a question about this issue particularly. Like, there's no one doing that this time. But I was just like scanning through all of like the artist alley, all the small press, and I was wondering, is this a good way to do cons right now? Like, is this a good way to do a con in the future, perhaps? Like, I feel like it takes away a little bit of the fun, like that sort of immediacy you have, like seeing cool art. Because like I think about how many times, like I remember that one year that we went and you got like the One Punch Man and the Death Note art from that one artist, literally just like by us walking by, we saw it. Like, holy shit, that guy's great. I wonder, but like, do you think there's something that can replace that sort of immediacy of like, oh, interesting, like how? Because like this was just a list. To me, what's missing is the visual representation of the art.
I don't even know so much is that what I think will be irreplaceable for the convention vibe, right? And I have some issues with, like, some of the super fandom cultures that we are creating where it becomes this, like, arms race of if you're worthy or not. But at its very best, right, just being in a building and seeing people so wildly passionate about the things you like, you can't replicate that with a Zoom call, right? Like,
no.
Me seeing people dressing up in cosplay of, Dragon Ball Z characters or this and that, is not going to be the same as being on a Zoom call with the guy who does the voice of Goku. You know what I mean? Like, that's
sure.
You can't replace there is an electricity to conventions. And like anything like that's a big gathering. And I think concerts are like this, all that kind of stuff, right? I think the more people you add to anything, the inherently worse it gets, right? It's just the nature of what we are. But the reason that we abide these terrible large gatherings with overpriced food and hard to find bathroom and smells and, people you would never want to be around at times is because the overwhelming majority of people there are people who passionately love the things that you love. And seeing, just little things, like just seeing the one thing that, it's not the same to scroll Amazon as to, walk through the comic book store and, feel the kind of like old magic, of the page. Right. So because I wondered this about movie theaters and a lot of this. I don't think those kind of places ever leave because I think there's this religion to those experiences that you can't replicate the other way. Now, will something like WonderCon start supplementing? Maybe this is a good way to add on. So people, like when you did your book, right, and you had a small press table as an indie guy, maybe, just maybe, people who can't attend WonderCon, you can exponentially grow the total eyeballs and, find some new people. That could be a really good addition, but I just don't think you can replace that electricity.
Yeah. I feel like the virtual con is, like, from what I saw on Saturday and Sunday, the virtual con is a good idea. It's based in the heart of what we're talking about, which is you want people's art out there. You want people to be able to see what you do. That's an important aspect of this entirely. But I was thinking more on it, and I was like, what is the way to make this? Like, if we were going to do, like, the Long Box Con, and we were going to make our own convention, but we had to do it in the time of COVID, how would we, like, when I see these kinds of things, like, how would I revamp this and manufacture it so that it actually works in the way that caters to the things we're talking about, like the immediacy of, like, walking past a booth and so on and so forth. I'm not saying, like, panels are going to be fixed, but, like, think about it, like, first off, we eliminate the issue of, like, having to deal with, the security aspect of it. Like, obviously, if you're a hacker, it's a hacker. But, like, you eliminate, like, that issue ultimately. And I got to be honest, as the years have gone on, the security has gotten a little tighter and a little scarier. And, like, now you have these tap cards you have to get in and out with. And even still, not a foolproof plan. Like, even still, there's crazies out there, and they absolutely can get in if they want.
Yeah, well, the last convention I attended was Gen Con, and there's definitely people in that room. You're like, this could turn into a documentary real quick. Like, the one guy who can't get, like, the newest Zombicide just gonna bring this fucker down, and you're like, I'm just here with a child. So yeah, I understand that.
Sure.
This is the challenge you face, though, right? It's like, what is the good of a virtual artist alley in the age of Instagram, right? And things like that stuff is already there for artists to so immediately reach a lot of people.
Right.
And then you have to make your con to where it's the thing that through curation you are elevated. I don't know. I think the digital con, it reminds me, like, we've been making fun of pro wrestling here recently. Like, the pro wrestling without an audience is just so sad in community theater and very hard to watch.
Right.
But my kids are just, it's part of their ritual. They like to watch wrestling on those nights. So you're like, is it better to have nothing, or would it have been cooler to just wait and do WrestleMania as a welcome back from disease? You know what I mean?
Right.
Instead of pre-recording The Undertaker fist fighting to Metallica. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a
But
barn.
you bring up an, like, because really, like, if you want to talk about, like, the heart of Comic-Con, like, to me, if this was the Long Box Con, I'd literally take away panels and all this other stuff, besides, of course, our show constantly blaring over the audio. But, like
a dystopian George Orwell novel, you just only can hear our voices.
Absolutely. Or the like that whole thing. But when you think about it, really, like, small press, artist alley, that's where, like, the con lives. That's the electricity. And then to a lesser, like, you have to figure out the cosplay thing, because cosplay is another huge aspect of this that is a very important thing. And that, I think, is kind of the hardest. Like, I actually saw our friends, the Nerdlies, posted a video of a guy who was meant to go dressed as Mr. Sinister. And it was an amazing costume. Like, it was absolutely incredible. But he literally, like, showed the process of putting everything on and then, like, went outside with it on. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there is that aspect of, like, there's a little more, maybe there's a little more performance available and a little more even better prep in some cases. Well, so you can, like, show the immediate product rather than, like, end of day sweaty version of, like, Rey Skywalker.
There are two things at some conventions that will be impossible to replace, right? Which is, one, some people so fetishize being in the Hall H reveals, right? Like, they're willing to wait hours and hours in line so that they can hear something maybe an hour or two before I read about it, and maybe they'll see a trailer I won't see for a month. Right. But why do people do that to themselves, right? Like, the idea of people waiting in line for multiple hours for something like that, they want that I was there and you are not, right? I am in the club and you are not. It's a way to separate us in the saturated
It eliminates
culture.
that attempt of people trying to, like, create FOMO, because that was one of our friends who literally waited, like, 14 hours just so they were like, yeah, but I got to see John Williams play. It was the year they announced, like, Force Awakens. Like, yeah, but I got to see John Williams play, and they gave me a free lightsaber. I'm like, cool. That's a huge waste of time.
I did that at the Hollywood Bowl. And I got to bring wine.
By the way, I get that at the Hollywood Bowl every year, and I can bring wine. Yeah,
but that's what I mean, though, right? Like, there is a part of what the convention feels like is it gets this clubhouse mentality, where again, and that's part of what. And I know cosplayers will probably take umbrage with this, but there's a big part of. They're not really just there to show their appreciation for characters. There is a lot of look at me-ness to it, right? Like, I saw a guy at the last convention I was at. He was in, like, a 14-foot tall Transformer costume. and then there was a Thanos that was also like 13 to 15 feet tall. And it's like, you can say that's just about, oh, I love Thanos too. But you also want to say your love of Thanos now becomes an eyeball magnet for me. Like, you must look at me and put me online. And that's cool, man, because those cosplayers, a lot of them, right?
They do a lot of work,
not a large portion of them, but the ones that really are good at crafting, right? And they use it as an art form, right? They are creating a piece of art in what they're doing. I mean, hey, I think that's great. But again, without the eyeballs, right? Without the, ability to stand and perform in a way, be performative to an audience, I think that hurts as well. Like, there are a lot of people that want that effect, and that's something that will be hard to replace in a virtual con, right? So what do you do, right? So here's Longbox Con. It's like, oh, we got those deets. We got those deets about how we're going to wish back Robert Downey Jr. for the next Avengers movie, right? Because,
Right.
So we're going to cross it over with Aladdin, right? We've done a hologram of Robin Williams, and he's going to wish back Robert Downey Jr. in a very meta Avengers movie, right? We have the deets, and Robert Downey Jr. is going to be there. Do you say, hey, do you want to pay an extra $50 to do that Zoom? Right? First 100 available.
Interesting.
So that you're saying, can feel even
so you're saying
more.
Panels, like a Hall H is like a paywall.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, right? Then you give people the ability to still say, hey, I like this more than you, and it means more to me than you. Then maybe, just maybe, you can kind of capture that, right? It's kind of like those people that run Ironmans. They're like, look how far I can ride a bike. And I'm like, I guess that's cool. Like, maybe if like you're in a survival scenario, then I'll be really impressed. But like, I get it. You're just like a guy who wants to have bad joints. Like, that's fine.
Right.
Like,
okay, so if let's say you solve the Hall H problem that way by putting it behind a paywall, and hey, if you want to pay $50 to know who's going to be in the next Avengers movie,
right?
Here's the group.
Here's the reveal, right?
Show us the dough. We'll let you into the virtual hall.
Yeah,
okay.
And then you somehow have a contract, right? Like, you get everyone's computer information. It's like, if one of you leaks this or tweets it, you will go to jail for all time, right? Like, for all time, you will be locked in nerd prison, right?
Well, let's be fair. It'll be Disney, so Disney be like, if one of you tweets or leaks this, you will become part of the It's a Small World.
It's only a matter of time until Disney starts building the Pinocchio section where they lock us up for good.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's only a matter of time before. It's only a matter of time before everything horrible about, like, particularly Pinocchio becomes real, without question. Like,
I mean,
Pleasure Island, where all the kids turn into donkeys. Absolutely. There's
close. A very Terminator. I forget which one it was that had John Connor in it, right? They all have John Connor, but old John Connor, right? Christian Bale. Which one was that? Not Genesis.
That's
not Dark Fate. I'm trying to remember Salvation.
Terminator Salvation.
There's very much a Disney vibe to the, hey, Skynet is running us into the processing plant. And I was like, that's the Disney future, right? That's probably why they're buying up all the studios. They're like, stop telling our plan. But so that's the question is, the Hall H is an enormous draw for people because they want to be, and I think it sounds very derogatory the way I'm saying it, and probably they're subconsciously that's a part of how I feel. But
sure, but
there is another way to look at that where it really means a lot to people, and if they have the means and the time to waste, right? That's where their argument falls apart, right? Like, there could be a kid who has $0 and one janky ass, 3 pages of one Batman book and might love Batman more than any of us because it means so much more to him, right? So if you have the money and the means and the time to waste, and you can really be a part of something that you love and it feels like this historic thing, yeah, okay. So that part of it, the Hall H and the cosplayers, I don't know how do you elevate them to where they can feel like they are also invited performers, right? Like, that's the real trick. Like, that's the one that I think is the hardest. Like, to me, you have a good point. Like Artist Alley and Small Press, Instagram is a huge part of this. I'm a convention buyer, right? So I go to find books that I would never normally see, right? So I like to pick up weird trades of, various small stories, and I like getting art from the actual artist so I can pay them straight up money, which is probably more than they're getting off of, whatever I pay for a book.
So to
So
me,
I'm a buyer.
the best.
I'm not a
So to
performer.
me, like, because right now, like for instance, the way it looked on WonderCon and Home was just it was like a list. It described people, but it was basically just like the thing that like when I've filled out convention forms, it's like how I describe our art and like what we do. So it's just like a list of people's names with links. But to me, what you want to do is put on display a little bit, say like, hey, these are con exclusives. Like that's cool. Like what you want is on that front page when you say go down Artist Alley, you're like, oh, like then you're at least getting the scroll like walking by. It's the same vibe. It's not nearly as cool.
No one's
but at
gonna
least
click 500 links and be as interested
No.
as like when you just turn a corner and you see the thing and your
Right.
eyes go huge, right? Like
you gotta
can't-
see. There has to be some sort of visual, and then if you
Sure.
click and it takes you to like their Instagram or immediately to their like shop, that's even better. Like that's how this should be. It shouldn't just be like a
that's not
list
magic, though.
of like, oh, that person. Like for instance, there's
Maybe you
There's
got
an
to Pokemon
artist that,
Go it.
you
Maybe
and I
that's
like.
the trick. You got to Pokemon Go it, right? So you say this
Ooh,
will
that's
be
it.
a 1 week event, and
That's
you
good, yeah.
must make it. Build in some kind of that Pokemon game theory, right? Where
Right.
you must walk through this aisle and find this one item. So then you're giving people this kind of virtual space to crawl around. It feels like, like those games where it's like keep doing shit and keep your eyeballs
Yeah,
here
yeah.
and we'll give you little, and WonderCon can be like, oh, there's 5 levels of shirt, right? Like a fucking Bruce Lee movie. On the first level, you are but a green shirt. And on the top, you get the, extra defeat sweat, never holds a smell, charcoal gray shirt, right? Like, there can be ranks to this. And at WonderCon can send you at the end how much of you explored and participated in it. And then you are incentivizing people to dig past, just the very top server. Because honestly, like if you did an Artist Alley, and let's say at WonderCon you might have, for argument's sake, this might be way more, 500 booths, right, of artists, right, selling their wares. How many artists do you think most people at that convention can name off the top of their head and have a piece of art that they've seen from that person that really lights them up? Let's say optimistically 20, even 50
Maybe.
is but 10%, right? So that's what you got to do is, I think that's a cool way that they could
I
build
like
a
the
little
Pokemon Go
virtual
thing,
hall, right? Do it like Animal Crossing or whatever these fucking games are. Oh, I'm walking across Hall H. Go over here.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, get a
No,
corn
but that's
dog
exactly
from the
what it
Martian
should be.
Manhunter. Oh, that's 10 points. You can unlock something, right?
Right.
And
But no, but
incentivize it.
you're right though. Like it still has to be on display in some way. That Pokemon Go vibe though that's the way it is. It's participatory. It puts you in the hall itself.
Yes.
Like
it
it gives you the right
distinguishes
vibe.
levels so that you can say that you cared more about WonderCon and everything else than other people. I think it
Not
really,
an Artist Alley, man. Every other place, yes, but Artist Alley is for
No, but
everyone.
I'm saying people like that. They like the notion that they're doing more and that, like, I have a buddy, and we went to Gen Con last year, and we went one day, right? We're like, we just go Sunday and clean up games, right? I just go to buy a bunch
Right.
of games. This year I got talked into the 4-day pass, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to enjoy that at all.
Nope.
Like, last year I was like, I went one day. You're like, I probably could have done, like, one more day without the kid. So I could. It's
Yeah.
really hard to test board games with a 4-year-old. Come to find
Right.
out, right? But but that's what I mean, though, right? But he's like, we were texting him, and he would barely respond to our texts. Like, my schedule, it's so busy. Like, I have a very tight schedule at the con. I'm like, dude, it's a fucking board game convention. But for him, it's like his built-in vacation, and he gets every single ounce of participation he can out of it, right? He goes to,
Right.
he like pre-schedules everything. I just kind of go and meander at cons. Like, he's like in it. So you got to appeal to that guy. And to me, you have to appeal to that guy first. Those are the people that cons run for, right?
Sure.
Like, and how do you do there's no excitement of like going to a virtual horror convention if Kane Hodder can't choke me. You know what I mean? Like you have to find a way
Yeah.
to make it more involved than just scrolling through Amazon style of like, oh, here are things I can buy because I can do that
Right.
already.
It's got to be interactive, and you have to be able to see the stuff. Again, it has to catch your eye the way it would catch my eye when I'm walking the convention floor. It has to be how it goes.
And then you find that thing you didn't know that you wanted. You love it so much. You have a nice chat with an artist that you would never find any other way, right?
Exactly.
You have this moment. Like I look around, my fucking office is like swarmed with shit I bought at cons. And I can remember almost all of these people I talked to, and like, even if not names, there's a really nice memory to all of those, right? And like, that's the thing, because I can just buy cool posts. Like, I could go online right now and buy 200 amazing pieces of art. It's not the same vibe, though. And so how do you make that magic? You know, by saying, oh, this is an unlocked exclusive, blah, blah, blah. Maybe the con can pay these people for the things that are unlockable. So then it's just good business for everyone, man.
Yeah.
You incentivize people to find the non, top 20 big artists from the, big three.
Right.
Get them going, past the others, man. Or the big two, I guess. Yeah, that would be cool, though. That's how.
That sounds like
if
fun.
we did a long box con, that's how I would have to try to do it virtually.
That's a nice long box con.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because I'm telling you, you have to have that element of people being braggadocious.
Long box con. Guys, we got the ideas. Send someone our way to do this Pokemon Go experiment of a digital con with us.
Yeah. But everyone's avatar has to look like me or Alex.
Question for you. Best memory of buying a piece of art at a con. What's the best one? Doesn't have to be your best piece of art, just one of your better memories.
My better memories? Wow, that's really hard. I'll tell you a weird memory I have is our Neil Adams interaction was really funny to me.
It was.
Because we just turned a corner and here's this guy with like this, it's like the Walmart of booths, right?
It's
huge. And you're just sitting there looking at this man and he's kind of doing dad jokes and you're like, this is like the Walmart size booth. And you look at the enormous breadth of this man's career. But yeah, he was still like hustling me to like buy more shit. And like, I'll start autographing. Like he was fucking on it. And I was like, this dude who is like a legend. Like that was the guy who was drawing the Batmans of, the childhood I read, right? If not at the exact time I started, right before, like you definitely were picking those books up. And I was like, man, this motherfucker is just, it was kind of an empty booth too. So it was like just me, you, and him. And it was a really long interaction. And he was really, his energy and his pep, it like really struck me. I was like, wow, the legend Neil Adams is just out here. Like he reminded me of like a carnival barker. Like he was slinging and talking and selling. And I mean, he was just kind of, it was just a fascinating moment where you're like, I wasn't looking for him. If I'm being honest, I didn't know he was there because I don't like prepare. I don't prepare for cons. I just turned the corner and I had this really long interaction and looked through decades of this man's catalog to find 3 pieces I wanted for a deal. And he signed my Batman right there. It's the famous, the Joker's holding Batman on the card.
Right.
And I love it. And it just says to Griffey. So that is probably one of my more favorite interactions because it was just so surreal. I was like, holy shit.
I love Neil Adams at the cons because he always looks the same. He literally wears the exact same thing every single time. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. He's still just out there soldiering on. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he's
totally.
Just the guy who's still in it. And I found that really charming. I like that. I like seeing this old pro still going at it like he was, some rookie we'd never heard
always
of.
like seeing the older guys because Neil Adams has that like Walmart size booth. But then like if you walk through the rows, like Marv Wolfman, I saw Marv Wolfman one time. No one was at his booth. Mm-hmm. And he was just sitting there like quietly. I was like, how is no one fucking sitting like talking to this man?
Yeah.
No one is talking to this guy. Len Wein was the same way when Len Wein was alive. Like I walked past his booth and I was like, how is no one sitting here talking to Len Wein? Like it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm too nervous because I know who he is. And like I have that sort of stage fright thing about walking up to people I really love and respect. But I'm like, how is no one just like crowding over his booth? It's just bananas to me.
But that right there too, that is one of those magical things that you would be almost impossible to capture. Because online it would be this big, here is Neil Adams at his 3 allotted times and there will be 100 people per call or whatever. Like you can't, like we just sat and shot the shit with that guy for what felt like over 20 minutes. Just talking to an absolute legend of comic books. And it's kind of the thing that conventions can do. Like, you rarely can do that. Like, even in real life, like we used to see celebrities all the time in Los Angeles, right? Like, the funny one is I ran into J.K. Simmons, like, all the time. Like, I saw him at the batting cages, at the bank. and we would just chit chat like 1 or 2 lines. But I was like, I'd probably talk to that guy like 30 times because it was like the celebrity. I just always ended up somewhere where J.K. Simmons was, right? And it's like, you don't want to be the guy that's like gushing. And so even though I saw him all the time, there was no, blah, blah. But the convention will put you in a space where these people are here to specifically do that with you.
Right.
And if you're cool and not a dick about it, right? Like, I'm never going up to like grill. Usually I just start with like hey man, I love your work. And then, you try to hit them with like how's it going, man? Like, you okay? I try to personalize it, like make sure, like, like they're my buddy or something. And just like, I just want to get a feel for how they are, right? Because I'm always looking for the one. It's like, who's the guy I like that you're just like, oh, I can tell immediately. Like, this is just mad cock vibe. Like, that makes me sad, and I don't want to like participate anymore. I want to run before I'm ruined.
The last WonderCon that happened to me with Tim Sale. I walked up to Tim Sale's booth, and I really wanted to. He had a great black and white inked Spider-Man print. I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. And like, it was like our last thing. Like, we were on our way out, and I was like, I'm going to buy this print. So I bought it. His guy was there to sell it to me. I'm like, thanks. And he was literally standing right behind him. Like, he was just like doodling. I'm not saying he's an artist. Of course he's a doodler, But, and I was like, Tim, I love your work. He fucking flat out ignored me.
See, I can respect and ignore.
And right? I'm like, and what's funny? We were walking out, and Andrea was like, well, that was kind of rude. I'm like, you know what? I begrudgingly respect it. Like, I have a lot of respect for a guy who's like, I am too busy being awesome to have to like look up and say thank you.
He's done that a lot. At the end of the con, the thing I hate worse is the guy who's like, yeah, thanks, guy, and rolls his eyes. Like, that's where I'm like, no.
Oh, well, that's way worse.
You took the time out to make me know that you don't like this. If you just straight up, right? Like, I do this sometimes with my kids where it's like they'll say something stupid and you're just like, ignore that. Like, let them know that there are things that don't need to be said out. Like, ignore
I was
that.
deeply honored.
Yeah, and you're just like, I can respect and ignore because you don't judge off of an ignore, right? And if they're trying to like, do something else, right, it's a reasonable ignore. Once you are condescending or dismissive, it's like, bitch, you're here to do that for me. Like, it is the weird thing in the con. They are somewhat there to service the audience in a more personal way. So, like, and I get it. Not everyone is like the, hey, I want to sit and chat. And, like, I'm not a small talker.
No,
I'm not really. I'm not, like, a huge fan of pretending that, like, I really am excited to meet people that I'm really not excited to meet. So, like, I get it. But also, like, you are there, right? And I could just buy your shit online. Like, the part of buying it there is that you get that little extra magic on it, right?
Hey man, I've been on the other side of the booth. Like, I've hawked my shit. Like, I've sat there and like, it's tough because I'm also not a small talker. And like, when people walk up to the booth, you have to chat them up. Like, you're almost compelled because like, here's the thing is like, you should say like, if you're hawking your own stuff, generally the idea is like you say hi to as many people as you can. Like, hi. Oh, hey, how you doing? Like, just asking people how they are, and eventually someone will bite. It's fishing. But, like, the worst part is the people who walk up to you and, like, start asking you questions and you weren't, like, to me, I'm, like, never prepared for that. Like, people actually want to talk to me about the book. I'm like, fuck. What am I going to say? Like, and I have this, like, built-in pitch because, like, we've tabled stockings for the last 2 years, and, like, I have the built-in pitch in my head. But at the same time, like, after I finish the pitch, and I just, like, go, so, yeah, that's the book, man. You, like, trail off. You're like, well, that's just pathetic. Like, you don't have any good follow-up or anything like that. Like, I remember I met Tom King before he even got hired by Marvel. He was he put out that book, A Once Crowded Sky.
Once Crowded Sky. I have that book still.
Was it you and I, or was it me and Evan? I can't remember, but I met him at, like,
Evan, but I actually had that book. So I remember it was like hey, this is like a good book from a promising young writer. Little did we know he would become this like mega writer. He's a weird story too, where like I wonder what his convention experience is like, because I feel like the bigger he's gotten, the more people are sniping at him, which is really.
I feel like the bigger he's gotten, the weirder it's like, because I remember meeting him and like he was just tabling by himself, like he was just Tom King, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And we were checking out his book, but he had the same vibe, and I felt really bad because like I didn't have enough money to buy his book. But
you didn't have
he was
a
like,
Square?
He was literally no, that was before Square became a thing. But he was just like, will you come back and buy it? And I'm like, I will. I'll try, man. But I flipped through. I'm like, this is really great, man. Thank you. Like, and he was very, very nice, but he also had the same vibe of like, I know you don't want to small talk about your book, man. It's right there. Like, I'll just flip through it. Like, I felt so bad.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But that's
it's a weird thing.
I think that's the thing to focus on as we all go through this is I think a lot of people are scared that the things that, mean a lot to them are never going to come back. I think they will, man. I think the con is irreplaceable. I think the movie theater is irreplaceable. Now, again, I think there are a lot of movies that aren't worthy of being run theatrically and don't need to be out for 4 weeks and don't need to wait 3 months to be on video on demand. Like, Let's be fair. I watched Brahms, The Boy 2 on video on demand. That never needed to be in a movie theater. Like, let's be 1,000,000% clear, right? Like, and I am a horror lover and I love seeing horror movies. But, like, if you're not going to try, maybe I can just watch it in my underwear. So, like, there are things that will change, but the things that we love and the reasons we love them are not malleable. You cannot replace the electricity of the convention or the experience of that perfect movie moment in a theater and, the touching of comic books and the smell of a bookstore. Like, those things won't all the way disappear,
I don't think. I think that's the thing that's been most difficult to adjust to. And again, it's something that we've talked a lot about. Like, we literally every weekend, like, we Skype or Facebook video or anything, like, with people, like multiple people who we haven't seen in a while, just because, like, you and I are very lucky. I get to see you every week. It's wonderful. But, there are other people who I literally would never talk to in general if I didn't see them on a regular basis. So, like,
those people might disappear from your life. Like showering and other unimportant things, underwear.
But it's good to know that there are people who you don't want to have disappear from your life. So, like, people who are scared of, like, social interaction going away entirely, that's just improbable. That's an impossibility, in fact. But
I liked what David Lynch said. He thinks we're going to be, like, a kinder, more spiritual species for a while after this. Like, we'll all come back and just be excited and in wonder of the things that we're allowed to have in our life. And I hope that's the way it is, man.
I don't disagree. I hope it is too.
I totally disagree because I don't think that's the trajectory of the species we are, right? But there could be, like, a momentary nobility, right? Like, there will definitely be that first month back, and God only knows when that is, right? Because people will start going back out before they should, and people will start going back out, and so others will be scared, whatever. But, like, the first month, let's say, like, really bad case scenario, like December, right? Or next, wherever. The first time we're all like that, like 98% of us are like, it's cool to go out. People, you are going to be waving and smiling and stoked. You're going to small talk cashiers. You're going to tip waiters. I think it's going to be good for a while, man. So
it will.
I'm trying to be optimistic as, like,
we'll have at least a month of, like,
really slips away.
We'll have at least a month of, like, really pleasant interactions. Maybe it'll just change everything. I don't know. Everything is about to change. Everything already is changing, but I do think in some respects it's changing for the better. And I hope you do too, because honestly, this is affecting all of us in a very weird way, but just know that you always have, like, if you need to reach out, you always have people, and the things that you value most, like cons, movie theaters, these kinds of, like, social interactions that we're all scared are going to go away permanently. Not going to happen because the community is too strong and they wouldn't let it happen. Even if it did, there'd be a way to get it out. We'd go back underground. Who even knows? Elk lodges will be filled with scores of nerds.
The fucking Red Lodge from again. Twin Peaks.
Hell fucking yeah, guys. Well, guys, I hope you're staying sane. I hope you're staying healthy. I hope you're staying safe. Thank you so much for listening, of course. As always, catch us on all your socials. You know where we are. Please go to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, subscribe to our show. It really helps us. And honestly, around the time that we're doing this show, during a quarantine, it could only do us wonders. So please put it out there. We would really appreciate it.
It's true.
Next week, we are totally going to talk about Immortal Hulk. Griffey's going to catch up. I'm going to catch up. We're going to be well-read and prepared to talk about not only how awesome it is, but maybe some of the psychological and philosophical quandaries that Bruce Banner finds himself in as literally the Walking Dead. Who knows? We'll see. So join us then if you like comic books. If not, still join. The Hulk's awesome. Why wouldn't you? Either way. From the Long Box Sessions, I'm Alex Dandino.
And I'm Josh Griffey.
Stay safe, guys. We're here for you.